everyone, it's Quarantine. I'm Amy, I use she, her, hers pronouns.
And I'm Mitch, and I use he, him, his pronouns.
Mitch, what's our question of the week?
Our question of the week that I just came up with off the cuff is, what is your favorite aquatic animal?
Okay, so I have an aquatic sleeve on my arm, and my favorite aquatic animal is, where is it? My little seahorse, and then it's somewhere. My little seahorse. Seahorses are my absolute favorite. I don't know. I used to be a dolphin girl when I was in elementary school.
Yeah.
I feel like you're either a dolphin girl or a horse girl when you're in elementary school.
Yeah. Or you're into like tigers or dragons.
Yeah. So I was definitely a dragons and dolphins kind of girl. But I don't know. I got older and I fell in love with seahorses, and now they're my absolute favorite. So
they're so cool. I love the way they hold on to like plants with their tails so they don't drift away when they're sleeping. And speaking of not drifting away when they're sleeping, my favorite aquatic animal is the otter.
They're so cute.
Because I just love them, and they hold hands when they're sleeping so they don't drift apart.
They're so cute.
They're so cute. I love otters. I know that doesn't really count because
yes,
they
it
don't
does.
live full time in the water,
but they're considered sea creatures.
Cool. Otters.
Otters and seahorses.
I don't know what's going on with my ear with this mask.
But also, I love seahorses because it shatters that toxic masculinity that fathers can't participate in childcare without being like a doofus, because the male seahorses are the ones that protect the babies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Otters are their own flotation devices.
Oh my god, they're so cute.
And I think that's cool too.
They're so cute. Anyway, we're not here to talk about sea animals because we could for forever. What we are here to talk about this week is how to respond when somebody comes out to you.
So this is something that we incorporate in a lot of our programming and in our safe zone training, but we don't always get to really get into. So that's why we decided to do it for a video. So when somebody is coming out to you for the first time, that's not the first time that they're thinking about this. They have been through, confusion. They're looking around them to see where they fit in their community, and does anybody else feel the same way they do? And they're really trying to grapple with, is this something that they can live with? Like, they're tolerating perhaps, but maybe not accepting that part of themselves. So by the time that they've actually voiced it to somebody else,
they've gone through a ton, and it's a very private and personal process for people to come out or to start thinking about coming out. What Mitch was just talking about is actually the cast model of coming out, where you go through the confusion stage, and then you go through the comparison stage where you're looking around trying to see who else is like you, and then you go through that tolerance stage where it's kind of like having a cold, where you're kind of like, I don't love this, but I can't do anything about it, so we're just going to try and take some cold meds and hope it goes away. And then we have the acceptance stage, where you've accepted that this is a part of you. You still might not be super happy about it, but you've accepted it. But then you get the pride stage, which is what everybody thinks about when you think about coming out. And to me personally, focusing on the pride stage and not all the things that come before it, I think really takes away from the process that people go through when they're coming out. And it looks different for everyone. I talk all the time about how I came out in a 2-month period of time between my junior and my senior year of college. And so I went through, that whole process of oh, this is a thing. Oh, I've met this person. Oh, I have to tell my family now because it feels yucky to me to not let my family know, because my family is so supportive and they've always been there for me. But I'm just going to kind of drop this bomb and then go back to college. And then I'm going to go through college my senior year. And now I have to decide if I'm telling people at college. Am I telling my friends? Am I telling teachers? I did not. But, it's a hard process to go through. And I think that sometimes we get so focused on the pride stage and being like, well, why do you have to be so in our faces about it? That people don't take the time to realize that they didn't just wake up and be like, woo, I'm coming out, here's my parade. It's this, I made it through the period of time where the risk for self-harm and suicide skyrocketed. I made it through with the period of time where the chance for substance abuse issues skyrockets. I went through all of these things on my own. I decided what things were more important to me and what things I was willing to give up if I had to lose things in order to come out and truly be who I am. So when we talk about why it's so important to come out and how to support people coming out to you, that's why.
Yeah, and so kind of starting with that, the first thing that it's really important to do when somebody comes out to you, acknowledging all that they've been through to get to that point, is to thank them for trusting you, affirm their identity, validate their identity, and pretty immediately you want to offer your support. Now, that does not mean that when I come out to Amy goes, "Great, I'll tell all of your coworkers." No. The chances are you could be one of the first or the very first person that someone is coming out to, and that's their information to share. That is very personal. I know that a lot of good intentioned people, especially when someone is transitioning, want to go and run and tell everybody that this person would like to be called a different name and by different pronouns to try and create a supportive environment. But if that person doesn't give you consent for that communication, you've just outed them and you could be putting them in a dangerous situation. So that's not the way to handle it. So when you're offering your support and, thanking them, giving them the time to say, what do you want to do next and how can I support you? And really figuring out where they are is best practice to make sure that they're staying in control of their own personal trajectory, especially, for safety reasons. And you can anticipate feelings of vulnerability because it is a very vulnerable thing for somebody to share. They're very scared usually. They're not sure how everyone's going to react. Even if you're someone who has been supportive forever, they may be afraid to tell you. I know my therapist told me to prepare that when I told my friends, they would all walk out on me, and to just be ready for that because she didn't want it to be a surprise. And instead it kept me from sharing things with my friends for a few more months because I was so afraid of that. So it's important to anticipate the feelings of vulnerability and acknowledge that those exist, but also don't assume that the person's sexuality or gender identity is something that's troubling them or a problem. See where they're at, meet them where they're at, and start where they're at, and really try to listen to what terms they're using for themselves and avoid labeling them. That's all a process, and people should always be able to self-define.
Yeah, and it's really important to remember that by the time people have come out to you, like we said, they've gone through that process, so they're pretty comfortable with their sense of self at that moment. It could change, and that's fine. What's important is that people will come to you with their reality, and your only job is to reflect that reality back to them. Use the terms that they use. Don't take it upon yourself to use terms if you don't hear them using it. It's really just follow their lead, because people, if they feel safe, will tell you who they are and how they can best be supported. And it might be a process, and that's okay. And there might be an initial feeling of loss, but the key to remember is that whether it's your child who wants to date a Samantha or a Samuel, the only thing that's changed about that child is that they prefer to date a Samantha instead of a Samuel. Still the same person, still interested in art, still interested in music, still interested in science, whatever it is. And it might feel like a bit of a loss, but the important thing to remember is just giving them the space to know that they can come to you, and to know that there is the opportunity to have discussions at length, and just really just being there for them, and like I said, reflecting their language back and allowing them the space to explain to you what their identity means.
Yeah. Too, like kind of going off of what Amy was saying, some people don't feel like their identity is something they need to share with all of their friends, all of their coworkers, especially, or even with their parents, like not until they're ready. So, if you're wanting to create an inclusive environment so that someone feels safe to come out to you, that's great. By all means, there's a lot of really good resources that we can connect you with for showing that visible support. But don't expect it, and don't feel that you are entitled to it. One of the, I think, most stressful things that ever happened to me was when I was in high school, before I was out, I was on a car ride with somebody, and they chose the car to initiate the conversation with me that they expected me to come out through. And I felt trapped. I felt like I had to share something. And I wasn't really ready to do that, but I ended up doing it. And it worked out okay, but it was really traumatic and stressful. So don't put people in that position. But, to say, like, if with your kids you want to talk about, like, media, like the show I Am Jazz or the book I Am Jazz, and how great it is that, like, she feels more comfortable and is living authentically. Like, those are the tools you can use. Those, not your personal connections to people, but, those stories are a great way for you to show people that you're open to that without, like, outing anybody else in your life. Like, with me, you have full permission to be like, oh, like, I have a friend named Mitch who, like, has gone through this, because that is something that I am verbally consenting to. But that's not true of, like, every LGBTQ person. So don't go using friends and family as teachable moments without their consent either.
And the other really important thing to remember is that it's really crucial that as soon as somebody comes out, you don't start, like, cracking jokes about, like, myths or stereotypes. So, if I come out to Mitch and he's like, oh, when you get in a Subaru, like, it's funny and we can giggle about it, but for a lot of people, they don't want to be the butt of a joke. And there's a difference between, like, so my partner and I were helping our neighbors with our neighbor's mother's bathroom, and Sarah sent me and our one neighbor to Lowe's while she stayed behind with my neighbor's wife. And the whole time, my neighbor and I were like, they sent the wrong lesbians to Lowe's. Like, we're not the handy ones. And, like, that's okay, because we were able to joke about it, and it is a funny stereotype. And for us, we're very secure in our identities that we're okay cracking those jokes. But that's one of those self-led things where I wouldn't expect Mitch to be like, what were you doing in Lowe's? You're not that kind of lesbian. Even though, like, he could crack that joke, he respects my space enough to, like, not make my identity a joke, because he doesn't know if it's okay. And those stereotypes, they are funny, and you can giggle about them, but relegating somebody's existence or identity to just a bunch of stereotypes and tropes completely erases who they are as a person. And even in us joking about, like, being the wrong lesbians to send to Lowe's, we were saying that because we're more the kind of people you'd find at Michael's or in a craft store or in a bookstore. Lowe's is not my stomping grounds, and I have a rule with Sarah.
Or the candle aisle at TJ Maxx.
Yes.
That's where she really lives.
It is. But I have a rule with Sarah when we go to Lowe's that, like, for every 10 minutes she spends just looking at the same saw I don't know the difference about. I'm like, cool, we're going to go look at really pretty lamps for our future bathroom because I need to have fun, and looking at miter saws are not fun to me. So it's okay to crack jokes, but let them be self-led. And also, doing it out the jump might not be the best thing because people don't want to be seen as a joke. And it's the same thing as, like, I can joke about my sister, but you can't say that about my sister. It's very similar. It's a very personal experience. So see the person for who they are, not for who society jokes about them being.
Yeah. Well, and even, so stereotypes and myths and perfectly well-meaning statements, they don't have to be jokes, right? Like, there was new relationships starting for me in college, early in my transition, and a friend who was also transgender. I choose to believe that it wasn't a joking thing. I choose to believe that, like, they genuinely believed this was the best thing to say to my new partner. Told my new partner, oh, you know that since you're dating Mitch, you're essentially dating a woman. Like, you understand that, right? I like I said, for my own well-being, I choose to believe that it was a letting them know that there is, like, a difference in dating, you know, a trans person. But also, one, ouch. Two, it ruined my friendship with that person. Three, I'm still thinking about it. That happened 6 years ago. And it permanently damaged my relationship with that person who could have had really good intent. So using that myth and stereotype, it's not something that we as LGBTQ community members are immune to. We do it to each other. Like Amy was saying, making the jokes about lesbians and those, like, we all do it, but it can be really harmful. So especially when somebody is coming out, and two, like, always establish with people that if you say something wrong, you want to hear about it, and create that space for conversation. Most importantly, though, letting people know that they're not alone and that there are supports and resources. Choosing to, like, send them a link to our YouTube channel is a great way to introduce them to, like, localized programming in a way that is safer, because they don't have to attend one of our meetings or reach out to us on the phone. But it's a way to, like, know that our program exists and that, you know, we're available when they're ready, or if they're ready to ever, like, step into the community more. That's a great way to support somebody. Inundating them with, like, everything gay on their Facebook wall, maybe not so much, right? But, like, that private message of, hey, just so you know, this exists, or I saw this and I thought of you, in that confidential space, awesome. It's a good way to show your support.
Yeah. So, and really, it's kind of an honor when people choose to come out to you, because they've identified you as that safe person for them, and they've identified you as the person that they feel confident will not turn this against them. So when somebody comes out to you, bear in mind that you have a responsibility to that person as well, that you owe it to them to keep them safe, and to let them know, like, thank you for trusting me with this. I know this had to have been hard for you. I'm sure you're uncomfortable right now, and I really want you to know that I see that, and I appreciate that you trust me enough with this information. How can I help you? Opening up the conversation, even in that, it seems so easy and so small, but opening that conversation in a way that allows for them to know that you're a safe person, and to know that you truly care and you want to help them however you can, is crucial, and honestly the number one thing. So we'll of course in our comments section put a list to the Trevor Project and the Trans Lifeline, as always, and our domestic violence 24-hour hotline. But we'll also give you a link to a really good resource on how to be there for someone when they come out. And if you have any other questions or concerns, or you think of anything that maybe we didn't touch on, feel free to leave us a comment or contact us through our work emails or Facebook or Instagram, or however you want to find us, because we're here and we're willing to help out.
So have a wonderful weekend and do something fun for yourself.
Absolutely.
Just 'cause.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a nice weekend, so get outside.
Bye.
Bye.